I appreciate you folks coming out on a nice, wonderful, sunny, warm afternoon. But, I got a call yesterday. I was on my way back from Harrisburg. I'm Jim Barbour. We have a farm up here on the hill. And I was down, I'm the, actually, if you don't know me, I'm the District 1 State Board Member for Pennsylvania Farm Bureau. Represent Susquehanna, Wayne Pike, Wyoming, and Lackawanna counties. And I was down in Harrisburg doing some things the last couple days, and I was on my way back yesterday and got a phone call that said that Mr. Marino had some time to stop around Susquehanna County. What'd I say? I did. And so we're mostly farmers here today because we want to talk about ag things, and so we're excited about him being here and spending this time. So I'm glad he could make it, and I'm going to let him say some words. What we want to primarily talk about our farm issues and our ag issues, and I appreciate all the farmers being here. So, Tom, it's your time, and we'll be asking some questions. But we want to go over a lot of things that the Farm Bureau is interested in, and Ag Bill and all those things, and broadband.
Well, we were scheduled to come. I'm at going to the NRA event tonight, and excuse my voice because I've just been yapping so much in the district for so long that it's gone. I said, well, we're making the trip. Let's just get people together, and particularly the farmers, because I live in the middle of 5 farms. So I know what farmers are going through. And it's always good to hear, because I get ideas. As a matter of fact, a couple of my farmers gave me some ideas on legislation that we are working on getting passed. So just briefly about my background. I started working in a factory at 17. Started sweeping floors, and I worked in 2 factories actually, till I was 30. Most of it was the baking industry, wholesale bakers, Stroman bakeries. And I still bake. I have a technical degree actually in baking. I went to the American Institute of Baking in Chicago. And I was a superintendent over a couple of plants. But the owner passed away, international company came in, I saw what they were doing, so I moved on. I was in the steel industry for 2 years, light steel, but then back in the baking industry. But in 2009, I was Thanksgiving night, I was watching TV and the news and carrying on and throwing the pillow at the TV and screaming, and my wife said, why don't you do something about it? So we decided to run for Congressman. And Susquehanna County was a vital part in me getting elected overwhelmingly, and I thank you for that. I spent some time in a law firm, quickly became a partner, but my career has been, most of it, as a prosecutor. I was a district attorney in Lycoming County for 10 years, and then I was asked by President W. Bush to be a U.S. attorney for the White House and the Justice Department. And, but then I decided to run for Congress because I was afraid for my children's future and where the country was headed under the Obama administration. So with that, I'm on Homeland Security. Actually, I just stepped off because I'm so busy on my other committees. NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. I travel around the world with the other 28 NATO countries. Judiciary, Foreign Affairs. Our plate's full. I have a great staff in the district and in D.C. They make me look good. I'm told that we hold the record on legislation for someone only being there 8 years that we've got signed into law by 2 presidents, President Obama and President Trump. And pretty much all creating jobs or dismantling parts of Obamacare because I do support some of it. So with that, tell me what's on your mind. Tell me what I can do for you and what I should be doing.
LGQ, Franklin Township, and this is off subject. We got a couple of residents here and ourselves with a flood declaration. I figured you'd ready to answer that.
Yeah.
Just please answer that for us.
Yeah, tell me specifically.
The flood of August 14th.
Yeah.
Our township, 37 miles away, we had
Right.
$1.4 million of damage,
Yeah.
and we're up against it in a big way. We have several residents that lost their homes, and we filed all the paperwork, and we seem to be dragging to get the declaration. I don't know if
The
that's.
state declaration.
Isn't that the first?
That's the problem.
Okay.
That's the problem, because actually we already, we have money and we're ready to set aside things,
So what
to,
can we do as, I'm a supervisor, but what can we do as residents?
well, you're just telling me now, and that's good. Did you, I wish you'd have called me right away, but that doesn't matter. You're telling me now?
We called your office several times and got good responses, and were told to go through with our EMA management and get
Yes.
the papers filed,
Yeah.
which we did. And then I called the governor's office.
And what did they
2
say?
weeks ago, and they said, we'll be done in a week, it's gonna be, and it's just, it seems to go on.
And that's the problem. We're ready to go at the federal level. We were ready to go from the beginning. There is a requirement, a law, whatever you want to call it. The president just can't come in and say, the governor has to declare that. And my complaint to the governor's office has been, we've had floods in the past. When I just got elected in 2011 and 2012, I was running around the district because of the floods. And I said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know what we're going to be faced with. So I've been complaining in the governor's office, and they're saying, well, we can't declare an emergency until we get information from everybody. And I disagree with that. We can always update the declaration of saying we're declaring this as a disaster zone. So we're putting more and more pressure on it. We're just waiting for the move. I have my staff asking FEMA, why don't you come in anyhow?
I got told that once the state declares, within 30 days, the federal government probably will act on it. Is that an accurate statement?
I think it's going to be a lot faster than 30 days,
Okay.
and we're going to make sure, because my staff's going to remind me when we get back, that I'm going to put the, I don't mean this in a condescending way or in an arrogant way, but I do have a contact in the White House. I was the first guy who came out to support President Trump, and I don't abuse it. But when I need something like this, and this is something, we'll get the message over, saying, we need this right away. And he will respond to it. He will call me. 2 weeks ago, called me from Air Force One, wanting to know why I wasn't at his event. I said, Mr. President, I know you have events, but I have an election, so I have events too. But we will be right on that.
And thank you, your office got my wife and I tickets to the White House Christmas. That's just a personal thing to thank you.
You're very welcome. Anytime. That's why we're there. The constituent service is a big deal.
I'm one of the residents that lost my home, and my house is coming down in a few weeks, which is sad. And I have to rebuild, but there was not enough flood insurance money to cover to build a new house, which is gonna be approximately $150,000. Is there a grant I can apply for that will help me to build my new home?
There are several grants out there. We will track them down before we leave. Please get with Ann, give her all your information, and we will see what is out there and get that information back to you. We can't help you apply for it, but if they're out there, we will find them. We will get them, tell you right where to go, so you're not going crazy looking on the internet for it, or if you need paperwork. And if you're stuck on it, on certain questions, then you can call us and we can help out. So
Right.
please get with Ann.
This is very difficult. Grew up next door, and I've been there since 1997. It's difficult for a lot of us and these people here.
I believe me, I see it. I'm all over the district, and that's why we run around the district the way we do, because we want you to get to know us, but not be afraid to call the office. And sometimes you think, well, I don't want to bother us. You're not bothering us. I work for you. Okay? So you call us and tell us what the problem is. If it's a state issue, we just don't say call the state. We work so closely with the local state reps and the senators, and vice versa, they work very closely with us. So,
Well, a few years ago, we got together, some of us as the township residents, to have the creek dredged. We got a hard time on that. Now, if that would have been dredged, I don't think this would have been as devastating as it was for all of us.
and I know exactly what you're talking about, and that's EPA and DEP, the state protection. I was out in a flood zone actually I told you 11 and 12 several years ago and recently. And I was at several farms where they were close to a bridge or something in the middle of the creek was causing a problem. So EPA a person was there and said, we can't get someone here to do this just like that. And DEP said, we can't, we don't have anybody to get out there. It's all needed somebody, I could wade across it, and all that was needed was somebody with a backhoe to come in. And so there was a guy, a farmer, had a backhoe, says, I can do it. And I said to the DEP, and the other guy says, why not? He knows what he's doing, he did it. The water, it was all the trees were pulled away and things were running through. Dredging is a big deal. I keep arguing with DEP and the FDA on dredging. The EPA, I mean. We have so many thousands and thousands of miles of streams and rivers that should be dredged. We just don't have the resources to do it. And we've never planned for that. And each time it rains, like we're getting now, that debris washes down, that silt washes down, and that riverbed or creek bed gets higher and higher. I see it where I'm at. I've been there for 18 years. And I can tell when everyone else is going to get flooded, because at the bottom of my hill, there are two streams that merge. Once that water starts over the road and doesn't go through the system, I know everybody else is going to get flooded. And it's just that we've got to start getting into at least more, how can I say it, populated rural areas and do simple dredging.
Well, we were told we had to do it ourselves and get our own permits. I thought that was wrong. They weren't willing to compromise with us, and we had to pay it out of our pockets. Now, why couldn't they have helped us?
We as a township dredged your creek for a half mile, and it's done. So it is happening. It's a slow process.
It is a
and
slow process.
Painful process.
And
but it's something. If you're persistent, you can.
And again, get us involved, because it shouldn't be this way. You shouldn't have to call DEP or even the EPA. You're going to get the runaround there. But when we pick up the phone and the supervisor calls us, and we'll be on that stuff. I want to just caution people, and I'm enough of a, how can I say it, a weekend wannabe farmer. I know how to operate the backhoe and stuff, but it's dangerous work. So I'm putting more responsibility on the township supervisors.
I don't want to dominate the meeting, but I'd like Tim to. I'm a farmer too, and I'd like him to say what are the issues, what are the farm issues that we're dealing with,
Okay.
or you or somebody.
But please keep us in the loop on matters.
Thank you.
But to continue on that issue, our water here flows north into New York State, into the Susquehanna, while it's still in New York State. And when it comes to taking care of the streams, the other side of the river on New York State, when it floods, they get right in there and clean them out, and they don't have the issues. Same water, same Chesapeake Bay water bottle, the whole thing, and yet we can't do the same things that we really need done. So that's something we need to address.
Well, let me just throw one thing out. The EPA, when I was talking to the person several years ago, and DEP, just their attitude was, it wasn't, well, you just can't do this. It wasn't, we're gonna leave now, and you do it. And they were good about that. But it's the lack of funds and people to get out there and do it. I want to take most of the people at EPA and DEP and put them into counties and put and when you have an emergency, you know what has to be done, and direct these people.
Can we talk a little bit about broadband and the?
Yeah, just.
I have a question. One of the things that it seems to me that when you have a spring on your own land, you know where the water is starting to come from. You can mitigate that stream if it's flowing onto your drive or into your field. You can control that flow because you know where it starts from. You have total control over it. But when it's a creek that travels through your land, coming from someplace else, going to someplace else, you start to dredge it on your land, you may create a problem for somebody else downstream. Stream and creek dredging requires the coordination of that.
You're absolutely right, and if you think for a moment, I was talking about dredging, I was talking about clearing when debris gets under bridges or trees or you get stuck. Dredging is, you're right, when someone does something at some point in a creek or a river or a stream, we're having, like Cumming County is having an issue on, they have to rework all their dikes, which has saved the city over decades. But I met actually as a preemptive meeting with the counties that are in 15 counties, the largest district in the state. So the county or two above Lycoming County and the county to below Lycoming County, because what takes place there is going to have an effect on those two counties. So instead of just going in at one time to trying to get a pot of money to repair and reinforce the dikes, because EPA has done a reevaluation on this and said what you have isn't up to par where it should be. So I'm trying to get this all done in one package instead of the people down below or above not realizing what Lycoming County is doing. And you're right. This is serious, dangerous work that has to be done and can only be done by professionals. I want to make it clear that I'm talking, as I said a couple of moments ago, branches, tree trunks, loose trees, they'll get tangled up somehow. Removing that stuff immediately, if the person who is operating that equipment can do that. As far as getting out there and dredging, you have no idea what impact that's going to have negatively right there where you're at, or because it could be something underground there.
Before we move on to broadband, I'd like just one follow-up question. In planning, federal planning, I think could help the county and other rural counties like ours. We had one devastating flood after another, 2006, 2011, 2014, now just recently, August of 2018. And we've had rain events that have gone on and on and on. And we have changes that are going on in the climate, and our weather is, and Silver Creek here through the state park has changed its boundaries. It no longer is where it used to be, and it's changed for a long time until the next flood changes it again. But I'm thinking that when the Federal Federal Highway Transportation and Safety Administration said they predicted that there are going to be 4 degrees of Celsius of heat rise by the end of this century. That's going to have weather effects. And so I'm thinking that we're going to see more and more weather events, floods that are going to be bringing about erosion.
It's very possible.
And I think that we need to plan for it. And one of the things that disturbed me about that federal report was that they said, this is a hot bucket, we can't do anything about it, we can't stop it, so we're not going to plan to do anything about it. That seems to me to be wrong-headed. From the very least, we need to get out of the way of floodwaters that we expect to be on the way. And I think that we could use some federal planning.
And believe me, there is federal planning. EPA, the National Weather Departments and bureaus are having some planning, but this climate change is a big debate. You have just as many on one side saying opposite of what the other side's saying.
But the federal government has actually said it itself now. They're predicting even more heat rise than some scientists.
Yeah, but the problem is, no one knows what to do about it. There's no single answer, there's no silver bullet here that will stop that. Don't forget, the world's been evolving over 6 billion years. And it's gonna continue to do that.
I'm
Now, we
thinking
can
that our
point the
water
finger here, we
problems-
can point the finger there, but,
But I think these water events, rain events,
Yeah.
we're only going to see more of them, and we need to plan for increased flooding. We're not by the seashore, but we get
No.
a lot of rain dumped on us.
and particularly over the last decade, we have, at least from my experience. There are just so many things that, fires, that have to be put out, that it's getting to the point where the resources are slim and have to be specifically addressed to handle the immediate emergency. But I'm one that says, yeah, let's start putting some thought into this. Let's not talk about whether it is going to happen or not, or who's responsible for it. But let's start doing some more research. Maybe there is something that we can do on a global basis, because it is a global issue. Got your point well taken.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about broadband. We don't have a lot of big agriculture here, at least anymore, but a lot of parts of the state do. And the internet service that we have for a lot of our larger farms is not adequate to handle all the things they're doing. When you're looking at all the technology with the cows and the milking things and everything in the fields and all the equipment that's out there. Where are we at in upgrading that? What's that looking like? Because we do need help.
This is exciting for me, because I live out the country at the top of a mountain, and I hear my kids, my daughter just got married, so she went down, and my 19-year-old son there, I hear him constantly saying, Dad, I can't get service. Dad, this dropped. Dad, this. I said, listen, I'm tired of you telling me this. Write a letter to your congressman and tell him about it. But we are working on it. We have legislation that we are working on and passed, and we started it my office, the farm industry, schools, because one of my degrees is in secondary education, and I'm very, very pro-education. I'm not crazy about the Department of Education, but that's a subject for another day. And so what we've done, we've dropped, and they have my staff has a fancy name for it. I can't remember all the names, and I know the numbers, but I don't know the acronym for it.
It's rural broadband.
Rural, yeah, just.
Yeah.
That's what we refer to, rural broadband. We have $600 million. Now, 600 million seems like a lot of money, but when we're talking about crossing the country with 600 million, that breaks down rather quickly. But it's on its way. A little bit of it has started even now, and the bulk of it is, believe it or not, I'm told, and it looks that way, is there may be some other areas involved, but starting right here in our district, the new 12th congressional district, where we're going to get it to the rural areas. I had a roundtable discussion sometime in August, and we invited everyone we could think of, over 20 different entities who had a dog in this hunt that really could assist us. This is going to be, I'm not a person who likes subsidies. I don't like the federal government's putting money here and putting money there to keep somebody going that's never going to be able to run that particular business in and of itself. But having said that, I equate the need for broadband is as important as it was to get telephone and electric service to the rural areas. It's critical. I was sitting at one part of one of the universities where they could get internet. I went to the other side of the university, they couldn't get internet. High schools maybe are under the same conditions, but students can't go home and do their homework. college students can't get their homework done when they get back from the university and go back to the farms or back into the rural areas. So the president is excited about this. I'm excited about this. In addition to, there's going to be grant money out there, and one of the ways that we're going to pay for this and promote businesses, encourage them to get involved in this, we had to look at it very closely. And I was cautious because I didn't want to do one way of, they're fine. They're fine. This is just like at my house. When something important's going on, my kids are running around with kid boys, so please don't worry about that. So instead of one entity having more of an advantage over another entity as far as handing money out, we were doing it from the perspective of tax incentives. You get tax breaks. And this is good. This is getting industry, the entrepreneurs, the internet companies involved. Because along with what we did, I'm very proud of making sure that we got the corporate taxes lowered, the individual taxes lowered. So we're seeing a lot of business come into the country. We're seeing a lot of business come into on the East Coast. We're having trouble in Pennsylvania because still Pennsylvania has the highest corporate tax in the country. And I've argued with 3 or 4 governors back, even before I was a congressman. This isn't rocket science. I'm not crazy about the governor of New York, but at least he was smart enough to say, business, come on in. We're going to give you tax incentive breaks. We want you to invest. But so we're going to do it through, most of it through, company comes in, they're going to get some significant tax breaks. But here's another way that we're going to do this. I chair the Regulatory Reform and Antitrust Committee in DC. And that has a lot to do with regulating business, getting rid of job-crushing regulations, but getting business back into the country. And I have CEOs say to me, we'd love to build a plant in your district, in your state, but Pennsylvania is not a tax-friendly state. Hopefully we'd be able to take care of that. Whoever's in the governor's mansion should think twice about this. But we are getting already established companies interested in this when they saw the tax advantage side of it, to give them an incentive. It's estimated that it's going to cost, across the country, $40 billion, with a B, to get internet service to the rural areas. So I had a hearing concerning 2 smaller companies who want to merge. And they have to go through our committee first, and then the full committee. And then the Justice Department looks at a merger from is it an antitrust? Is it good for customers or bad for customers? There doesn't seem to be anything indicating that this is bad. And what's nice about this, we're talking about a tier level 3 and 4 company getting together and saying, we're going out into the rural areas, and they're going to put $40 billion into this. Now, what does that do to companies, number 1 and number 2? There's competition. So prices are going to come down on this. You're going to see people, there are several ways to do this too. You can satellite, you can string cable, you can do it through telephone, but there is a group of geniuses out there who are figuring out a way to do this without telephone lines, without running specific fiber optic lines through the hole from point A to point Z, because it costs $1 million a mile when you get towards the end of getting these lines strung. It's a lot of money. But they're coming up with devices that take the place, basically, of the cables. I want to refer to it as something more like TV broadcasting satellite, but putting these state-of-the-art pieces of equipment every so many miles, or every so many dozens of miles, that will relay from one point to point A to point B to point C. So there are several ways this is coming together. And I'm excited as heck about this. 'Cause I won't
Well,
hear
we're
from my
excited
son.
about that too. Another thing we wanted to talk about is our dairy issues. Last week we were out in Troy and had a meeting there with the Pennsylvania Milk Marketing Board and a lot of farmers there. We have a couple dairymen here. We have a lot of ex-dairymen here.
Unfortunately.
And we know that there's going to be a lot more ex-dairymen the way things are going. Nobody seems to have the right answer as to how to fix the whole marketing thing, but we know that it's an issue. You know that it's an issue. And now the reorganization of NAFTA and the possibility of moving some product with Canada. Do you know how long that might take and how that looks? Is it gonna come out the way it looks at this point?
I think it is gonna come out the way it looks, and from this perspective, but just give me one moment. Did I miss anything in, Paul, on rural internet service? I think I covered all those points? Good. Look, the president comes out with his toughest swing. If my dad were living today, he'd say, I'm glad to have a John Wayne in the White House. Look what happened when the president said, fine, you people want to mess around with trade. We've always been at a trade deficit, always. And at least in the 20th century. And he simply said, I'm tired of it. And look how quickly he got the European community. That's a dozen or so of the European countries that formed the European Union to do many things, but the most important thing is negotiate trade deals. When you have a dozen or 15 or 18 or 20 countries getting together themselves, certainly they all want something different, but then they get together and want to trade with the United States. That's a disadvantage to the U.S. I don't like these multilateral trade agreements. I like the bilateral. We do business with England. We do business with Germany. We do business with Japan. But it didn't take the Europeans long to send their minister over to the White House, and that afternoon, boom, comes out of there. The EU is now not putting trade barriers, no tariffs. We agreed that we don't want free trade, we want fair trade. And then next stop was Mexico. We've got that squared away. We're wrapping up with Canada. But the culprit here now is China. China flooding the market with inferior products. China doesn't have, obviously we know it's a dictatorship. It really has no value for life. And they're not paying people anything basically which they can live on. So the way to address that issue, and China is realizing what influence the United States is having on the world trade market. So we get other countries to team up and put the sanctions on China, whether it's their banking that they do here, the trade that they do around the world, what we will or will not buy from them. And China right now is, they're not in the financial safe place that they were at one time. So the rest of the world is realizing what China has done to the world, dumping, flooding the market, spending money all over the place. They've stopped doing that to a great deal. And we're getting there. So there's going to be we should be exporting a lot more powdered milk around the world. And that's one way we can help get prices up. Now, segueing to the farming issues, I dropped a piece of legislation, and I'm really fighting with the Ag Committee and the Secretary of Agriculture, because two ways that are going to make somewhat of a difference and raise the price of milk because the demand's going to increase. Let's get whole milk back into schools.
Yeah.
Amen.
We are dumping tens of thousands of gallons of milk away at schools because kids don't drink this skim milk or this soy milk.
Yeah.
And my legislation doesn't even say to the states, let's leave it up to the schools. But I'm hoping that the school board members realize that, not for two reasons. First of all, whole milk is much more healthy for us than what's out there. Builds bones, teeth structure, prevents diseases. I know it. My kids and other kids tell me, I don't like the stuff in school. I throw it away. They put it on my tray. I want whole milk. So right there is a main reason why we should have whole milk for health purposes. And number one or two, whatever you want to put these in a position, it's going to increase demand. So it increases demand and we can get that price of milk up. I have a real issue with, because every time I sit down with a group of dairy farmers, I get 5 different ways on how to address the issue of dairy farming. And I'm learning, I'm not on ag, but I know a good deal about this now because I've been taught by people like you. But the Secretary of Agriculture, we can do this basically in one fell swoop, and it wasn't being done. And I think the Ag Secretary said, well, we're going to increase non-white milk by 1% or so increase. Whole milk is, and correct me if I'm wrong, 96.4% fat-free. And so somebody comes up and says, yeah, but you know, we eliminated the fat. Well, that's not a good thing to do. I work out a lot. I work out 6 days a week. I run about 18 to 20 miles a week. And I lift weights, and I'm on a very regimented diet, my health also, but we need fat in our diet. This thing, you know, everybody's supposed to be like this, you know, this big around, and it's not good for us. And so I understand that, and since it wasn't taken care of by the Department of Agriculture, that's why I dropped the legislation. Okay, you aren't going to do it administratively, then we're going to do it from a legal perspective. I'm having problems getting the attention of the majority and the minority leaders on ag because 2 of them are arguing over issues that really have nothing to do with what we need to get done. One is a Democrat from this big city, and I forget where she's from. She's worried about making the city making more money available to make the city more green. Now, Nancy Pelosi tried this in D.C. when she was Speaker of the House. And what she did was they planted grass and plants on top of the flat buildings. But you know, I'm not a construction guy, and I'm not a farmer, but I can figure this out. If you start watering intensively on a flat roof, somehow that water is going to make its way down to the ceiling, through the 6th floor, the 5th floor, and so on. So this is important to this legislator, but the other Republican is, and I think is it cotton? Out from Iowa, they're arguing over 2 issues of where that money should go, cotton or for green. And I'm saying, excuse me, well, kids are here, I can't say this. Cut the bull, and let's grab the bull by the horns, and let's get this milk issue squared away. The number 2 issue on milk, which is going to help us out, because people believe what they hear, for the most part, as long as it's only 10 seconds, because their attention goes after my 10 seconds. Mine in 7 seconds, I tell my staff, if you don't have my attention in 7 seconds and I'm staring at the moon, you're wasting your time. If something does, if milk on a label, if the label says milk and it doesn't come from a mammal, it's not milk. You can't do that. Now there's a law at the Department of Education. I keep throwing education in because it's a block with me. I can't stand the way that education runs. But the Department of Ag has a rule that says they can control over labeling. They can simply say at again, a swipe of the pen, if it doesn't come from a mammal, you can't call it milk. So if you want it to almond juice, that's fine with me. Because no matter how much you hammer that almond, no milk comes out of it. So there's another way that people who really think they're getting milk are going to see something that says, this isn't milk. And again, it's going to increase demand.
I think if we can enforce the labeling laws, and they've seemed to have gotten a pass. And I know American Farm Bureau and Pennsylvania Farm Bureau has been just recently working on that. And I think that has affected, obviously, our market and consumption of milk, because there are other labeled milk products. And I know, and we've talked about this in Susquehanna County a lot, that a lot of the milk in schools does get thrown away. And if the kids don't like it, they go home, they don't want it there either, because they think it's bad because of what they had in school. And I think we've lost the marketing in big time with what we've tried to peddle and what we have labeled erroneously as milk. It's kind of interesting that we have to discuss what milk really is, or have a definition for it and where it comes from.
So this is one of the issues that are on my list to discuss with the president, and hopefully just simply have the president say, hey, Secretary of Ag, look into this and get this squared away, because you have the authority to do it.
Now, what about the packaging of milk? You ever go to Canada, they have in bags, they cut the corner, they put it in a container.
Yeah.
Now, wouldn't that save money on containers?
Absolutely.
And the plastic can give more money back to the
Yeah.
farmers if we were to try that. And with the littering, New York State has returnables that they take in, they got a cleaner state. Why can't the state of Pennsylvania have returnables? Much more people will be more apt to less litter, and that gets into
Take
the
plastic,
farmers, the cows eat
Get
it.
plastic, you know, I'm sure, I'm a recycling nut, and that's what my kids call me, the crazy recycling guy. But we are taking so much out of the earth and not putting back into it. Now, I'm not an environmentalist, I'm a conservationist. So the 18 years I've lived out in the middle of 5 farms, I've learned a lot. But do you know that there's, they say it's the size of Delaware, but there's this huge floating island of plastic that's traveling in the currents. I'm a scuba diver, and the stuff that I see underwater, not only when I'm in the ocean, but do some diving in rivers and quarries and places like that. But you're right. There's a dairy, market, ice cream store. I guess that's why I go there, because it's ice cream. I love ice cream. But people are coming in and out of there with glass jars all the time. This is empty. Get a new one. That's washed, taken care of, and we don't have the recycling issue there.
Well, is there anything you could do for Pennsylvania to help our farmers with the packaging of the milk, and then help the state of Pennsylvania become a cleaner state by try to get into them to have the recyclables where people will take it in? Okay, you get 5 cents a can. How many of them are gonna take them in now instead of throwing them along the road?
A lot more. Maybe I can get, I'd like some more information from you. This is actually the first time this topic has been brought up to me, but I think it's worth looking into, and we will. And again, get some information from you, and anybody who has input on this, we'll send, we'll get something up on the internet. Maybe we can do this on the congressional side, getting input from people on this, getting milk sold more so in jars.
And
Or plastic.
redeemables are important, because almost 100% of redeemables get redeemed and recycled.
Yeah.
The other glass and containers don't, because they don't control the container.
Right. I understand. Let's get to, just give me 1 second. If you're gonna go to pricing on milk, that's where I want to go to. So let me jump to pricing once.
Sure.
There is a group of people, not many, but I've met with them numerous times on their complaints about co-ops. Now, I understand, and tell me if I'm wrong, that most of the dairy producers are involved in co-ops. And co-ops are made up of dairy farmers, right?
Supposed to be.
Okay. Well, there have been accusations made, actually leveling criminal accusations against some people running some co-ops. And although I was a prosecutor, I understand that, But these are issues, if you think there's actually something criminal going there to the point of kickbacks and fraud and exchange of money, this has to be reported to your local district attorney, to the state attorney general. There's nothing, I wish I did have an investigative team from a criminal aspect to go look at things, but if I want that, I have to jump over to the Justice Department again. But this one person wants me to drop legislation that fixes the price of milk at $20 per hundredweight. Well, first of all, I can't do that. I don't have the authority to do that. States are heavily involved into setting milk prices, and I will do what we can at the federal level, but that's really more a state issue. And I'm looking to you for some suggestions on what, if anything, I can do at the federal level on milk pricing.
Something that might be able to change too is WIC. WIC isn't doing anything as far as whole milk anymore, as far as I know. We have a number of friends that have been on WIC. It used to always be whole milk. Now it's 1% skim,
That's
something like
it?
that.
I
That
didn't-
might be an option to
I
change.
didn't know that. Good. We can put an amendment together addressing that issue as well. I don't know why a parent wouldn't want their child, their newborn on whole milk. Unless they're breastfeeding or something at that point, but you think they'd move on to whole milk from that point. What else? Any suggestions? Tell me, what's your insight?
Well, we have some other dairy folks here, but I think that from the farmer's perspective, even with the co-ops, there's a transparency issue. That it feels like there's some things that are happening that farmers should know about, particularly with the overorder premium, and where some of the transportation and advertising dollars go, and the things that are deducted. Where does it go? How does it come back? And there's a lot of folks that think we ought to just get rid of the milk marketing board. And the meeting that we went to last week was fascinating. I think it was probably one of the first times a lot of farmers were able to sit down across the table and have a conversation with real people that are on the milk marketing board, and it was pretty productive. I think there was a lot of good ideas there, but with the transparency issue and the advertising dollars,
Because you pay for advertising. Well, here's the problem I have with it: the transportation from the milk from the farm to where it's being processed.
yeah.
Farmers paying that bill.
Well, and Pennsylvania's not doing new processing plants, and a lot of expense today of everything is transportation. And why do we ship milk from Pennsylvania to Indiana and from Mississippi to New York? And a lot of milk is meeting itself coming and going. Where if we could, and I understand open market, but we could save a lot of money and put a lot of money back in a farmer's pocket if we could keep. I mean, milk is milk. If we process it, we should keep it where it is, and it would save a lot of money in the economics of it.
Do you think there should be a price set? I know in Pennsylvania it's regulated. What would be the alternative to that? Would the market, just the market determiner, be better than what's taking place now? Let the market decide what the price is going to be?
I think every time that there's artificial supports, it creates a bigger problem. You either have to keep doing it or you're going to lose a lot until it corrects. And I think that's where we're at. We've got
The milk marketing board say that overorder premium, your milk has to be produced, processed, and sold in the state of Pennsylvania in order to get that. Well, my milk gets picked up and taken to New York to process it. It costs me just as much to produce my milk as it does the guy next door that maybe his is processed in Pennsylvania. And I've squawked about this for a long time, and they say, but you realize some of it. But I can't look at my milk check stub and
See some of it.
yeah, and that's what Jim is using, the word transparency.
Yeah.
So what do we do there from the transparency perspective? I mean, when you have co-op meetings, correct? Are you not getting answers? Is it something that's being buried, something that's covered up? It's a bad system. If you had to start over, we were starting over, say there are no more co-ops. The government gets out of setting prices, or the states get out of setting prices. What do you think would be the way to go about this, that you come out with a fair shake? Because I can't figure it out at this point yet, based on the different,
Everybody's
Opinions.
cost of production is different too,
Yeah.
because of how
sure,
they handle their own, business.
Yeah.
One thing I've always, and see, at one time I was on the Pennsylvania Dairy Promotion Board, and then I had a seat and I went up to New York State for the American Dairy Association and Dairy Council. And I've shared this with some of our Farm Bureau people. I was at a meeting in Syracuse, New York, and they said, oh, there's a hospitality room that you can go to when, your day is done. Well, there was wine at this hospitality room. And I started making noise, and I said, I can't go back to my farmer people that represent me and say, your promotion money that's coming out of your milk check every month is paying for wine at a hospitality room here. Well, the chairman of that board steered clear of me from then on.
I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I know you're right. I don't go to these events in DC because I do my job, get back to my office, do my reading till late at night, get up, go to the gym, and I know what you're talking about, the way money is being spent just to lobby Congress members. It's out of control.
Well, when you see the natural gas industry and when you see figures in the paper about the money that's going to lobbyists, when the landowner starts making noise about their royalty money.
Believe me, I've been keeping an eye on that. I'm in the middle of that. Our district is the biggest gas district, or one of the biggest, at least, in the country. But before we get off of the milk, I need some input from you on.
Walmart has built that huge processing plant in Indiana.
Yes.
And I have no idea how much input the government should have in this, but for you and your constituents to push for help to get a processing plant of that nature in the middle of the East, where all the people are,
Yeah.
seems logical. I mean, I don't know what it would take.
Well, one of the things that we're doing, and I'm waiting to, in fact, I was going to try and do it before the end of the year, but I don't want to do it because we're not going to get the notoriety and we're not going to get the coverage that I think we should have. But there is a couple of issues that I want to address. One is the oil industry, gas prices, and one is the producing, pasteurizing of milk outside of Pennsylvania. And I'll be a gentleman at first. Here's a letter to Walmart and other companies. Please come, and we're going to have a hearing 2 months from now, so everybody has enough time to get their schedules. And I want to hear about this. I want to hear why we're not putting a plant in Pennsylvania. As I said earlier, one of the problems is it's expensive to do business in Pennsylvania as a corporation. And so I think the key to that is lowering the corporate tax to put us on a level playing field with the rest of the other
Well,
states.
wouldn't necessarily have to be in Pennsylvania, but that,
Well, I think
That's
it
the
is
middle.
because it's the middle of things.
That's the middle.
Why not? I
why
mean, look
not? Exactly.
look where we're at.
Tell me about the, gas industry. What is your thought about where this royalty money is
I live
going?
right smack in the middle of all of this. I don't have a well, darn it, but that's the way it goes. There's some guy who keeps leaving pamphlets at my door that wants to come on our property. I only have about 6.5 acres. That wants to do something, and I'm thinking, you're not gonna put a pad here because there are too many houses around, so it must be some lateral drilling things, a farm above. But I didn't like the decision by the Pennsylvania Supreme Court on the contract issue of really understanding what particularly the rural farmers were being told what they would get paid and what they actually should receive. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court, and if somebody knows more than I do about this, please speak up, said the contract that farmers and people other than farmers entered into was a legal, legitimate contract, which said that they were, people knew or should have known what they were getting into. That I don't agree with, because my mother, God rest her soul, just passed away a few months ago. Was pretty savvy until towards the end of her illness. She started suffering from dementia, but I saw what my mother did as far as, she'd get a phone call from somebody to buy this, or somebody would send something in the mail and do this, or somebody would knock at the door and sit down and discuss something. And not everybody has the money or the time to run out and hire a lawyer when somebody comes in and sits at your table and says, this is what I'm going to do for you. And I just think that the law that the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania relied on is consistent contract law, but I didn't like the interpretation. It's real easy to be fast talked by someone who's going to say to you, you're going to get rich. And it's all you have to do is sign on the line here, and we're going to get paid and what it's going to cost us. But how far down do you go to claim something as a cost of doing business? And I've raised some cane with some people in the industry about this. I'm told it was going to be rectified, but I still found out that it's not. I think those companies, and correct me again if I'm wrong, most if not all of them those companies are gone or have been sold or have been bought out.
No,
any different treatment at this point?
We've seen a number of companies come and go here. Some of the worst ones aren't around anymore. They don't do business and they're not here. There's still a few, but there's still issues, and there's still challenges. And what we were all told to begin with, obviously, isn't how it's worked out. I remember early on when they came around and talked to the farmers, and they said, post-production costs, it'll be like less than 0.5%. It's not going to be much. Well, it's a lot different than that.
Somewhere between 22 and 25 all the time.
That's
Yeah.
Averages.
Yeah, and depending on the price,
I
because the
just got my check today and I did the math.
yeah.
Is there still litigation going on, or has that been?
Pardon me?
Is there a lawsuit still going on?
There is some.
Because I thought it was open, and I thought that the company or the companies said we almost have this resolved. Is it going anywhere? Who are the companies? Tell me who they are.
Chesapeake, Cabot.
Southwest, Chesapeake, Cabot, Southwest. Ann's taking notes for me.
Yeah. That's the three primary ones here in the area.
Can you give me some examples of what you think are beyond what you believe are going to be the cost of doing business?
Well, for the one thing, when they came in, the rent skyrocketed. People kicked us citizens that have been here for years out of our homes and our apartments just so they can rent to the gas people to get more money. I think that's wrong.
Wait a minute, run that by me again.
When the gas company came in,
Yeah.
the people that were paying rent at a decent rent rate
Yes,
got
yes.
kicked out of their rents, so they
Oh,
would
okay.
give rent to the gas
That's
people
it.
to get more money. And now the rents are still sky high because the gas people are in here. That's not fair to the rest of us who do not make gas wages.
I think my concern also is the impact fee that the counties and, especially the counties and townships receive would significantly be reduced if the severance tax was to go into effect.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
And I may be selfish, but what's under there is mine. And Donna's and all these other people. And it also, you know, it impacts the whole county and the township. The townships have new equipment. They wouldn't have been able to anywhere near afford.
I know. I've been criticized by some commissioners because of, I get a charge out of it when they say, boy, I balanced the budget. I didn't increase your taxes. Well, my mother could have done the same thing if she got $60 million from the gas industry. So let's just be upfront about it. But be that as it may, I am totally opposed to this impact fee because it will decrease. And you know where that money's going to go if the governor gets that through. That's going to go to Philadelphia. And it's going to go to Pittsburgh. I don't think our Senate majority, Republican majority in Harrisburg, or the House majority is going to go that way. It wouldn't surprise me that the governor may not try and make something through an executive order. I think he's going to have a problem there. Look, why? I'm sure you agree with me. Why let the money that is coming into the counties, then down to the townships, be determined by the politicians in Harrisburg? It's working fine. I really was impressed with, they wanted us to get involved federally, and I fought against that because I don't want the federal government getting involved to the point where they're starting to say, well, since we're in this, you know, we should get a chunk of this, and you have no idea what's going on. I really was impressed the way the state legislature put down specific requirements on how that money could be spent, you know, for infrastructure and things of that nature. It's working well. Yeah, you're darn right. If that's attempted and passed, you're not going to get the millions that like Cumming County and here in Bradford and other counties are getting. I'm getting the
We're down to the last couple minutes here.
This lady, I've got, give me a quick one.
Okay, quick one is, you mentioned something about Obamacare, that you like some of the parts of it,
Yeah.
and you would keep some parts. What
Yeah.
are the parts that you like and you would like to keep?
The pre-existing condition aspect of it, as far as I'm concerned, no one in this country should go without health insurance. And there are people, if they can't afford it, then we have a responsibility as Americans to take care of those people. There's been talk that, it's always in an election, that I have a piece of legislation being dropped that says the Republicans are not taking pre-existing conditions out of it. That pre-existing conditions are there, and people are going to get insurance. My legislation says that there should be no increase in the cost of health care for someone who has pre-existing conditions. And I'm a little selfish about that. Although I can afford it, I take care of it. My children are adopted, and they have some pre-existing condition issues that I can afford to take care of. But that's one. The fact that everybody should have health insurance. Problem is, we can't afford the way Obamacare is at this point. It was supposed to cover 60 million people for $900 billion and change over 10 years. And I have the president's quotes. You keep your doctor, your insurance rates are gonna go down, you can pick your own hospital, yada, yada, the whole 9 yards.
Didn't work.
It's going up over 30%. It's it's hitting businesses, particularly mid-sized businesses. Small businesses can't even afford to pay it anymore. We've made some changes where they can't. We took tax. You can't tax for. I had an artificial shoulder put in, and under Obamacare, you're charged for that medical device. You know, that's gone. Obamacare didn't have. I don't like a one-payer system. It doesn't work. It's too expensive. I told you what Obama said it was going to cost. In reality, what it cost is. We're getting estimates now that it'll cover maybe 12 to 22 million people at an overall cost that we're talking about in the 30-some billion dollars. 30-some billion dollars to pay for this. We don't have it. It's not there. And there's not one silver bullet that fixes this. We should be able to go across state lines to buy health insurance. And because we can't do it in Pennsylvania. What's that going to do? I have 49 other choices. So if Pennsylvania here wants my business, going across state lines is going to increase competition. We need to get, I have a great piece of legislation that should have been voted on before we left, and if it's not voted on by the time I get back, I'm going to make a public issue out of it. It's called the CREATES Act. It significantly reduces the price of medication. Companies have a patent on developing a drug. They should, because they put hundreds of millions of dollars and test it for years. Well, once that patent runs out, then a generic company can come in and buy that formula from the pharmaceutical company. We have a couple pharmaceutical companies that are not selling that formula, saying we've tweaked our formula, so therefore the patent should expand. No, my legislation says at the end of that period, you gotta sell it at a fair price, at a market price, and the generic can produce it because they don't have all that research. Let's see, what other issues?
But isn't one of the problems of drug pricing that there's very little competition?
I would say that there's several manufacturers out there. There are several distributors out there. One of the things that I want to see done is, and my wife knows about this because she ran a doctor's office for a long time. I want a pharmacist to tell you, say you do have insurance and your copay is $25, or you don't have insurance and the prescription is $200. Pharmaceutical companies do run, believe it or not, they do run specials, they do have coupons, and there's even a place on the net now where you can look to see where the cheapest drug is from one store to the next. I want the pharmacist to say, hey, instead of paying that $25 deductible, here's a $4 coupon that will get reimbursed, and then you can buy this drug. I could spend 2 hours on talking about what we should be doing to healthcare. And we're working on it.
Can we imitate Canada in some way, or South Africa? They have a working plan in their health plan.
Well, here's what we should be able to do. Look at the corporations. They get a real big discount because of all their people. Why can't local farmers get together in a county, form a group, and go as a group to buy that health insurance wherever they get the best price? That's another piece of legislation that I want to work on, because if you go with one person, the price is going to be a whole heck of a lot more than if you were to take 200 people or 100 people into that plan. You're going to get a much reduced price.
And we do that with Farm Bureau, but
Yeah.
it's still exorbitantly expensive. Farm Bill, I don't,
But insurance, to get this squared away, we have to get hospitals, doctors, pharmacists, lawyers, insurance companies around the table, and I've said to them a couple of times, if you guys don't get this worked out, you're not going to like the way Congress does it. Because you're gonna, all of you are going to be mad. We can get these costs down. I just went to the hospital not too long ago for a simple test, and then they wanted me to do actually 9 other tests. I mean, come on. I have a friend who was a physician in Europe. His brother was a physician, he was a research scientist. And you know the difference between practicing medicine over there and here? They do more examination theorizing and come up with diagnosis more so based on doing a physical exam instead of saying, well, we just want to rule this out, we want to rule that out. Now that has a lot to do with lawsuits. And people say we have to get with the trial, we have to make sure the trial lawyers aren't suing the way they should. But you know something, I want you to be aware of this. The courts, the judges have the authority to throw a case out if it's a bad case, and to assign the so-called respondent in a case who's not bringing it, assess them attorney's fees. But the courts aren't doing it, and I think if they did that more, if the loser pays, you're going to see so many cases not going to court. So you know that's an aspect of it. Now, look, I'm an attorney. I was a prosecutor, not a litigator. There are legitimate litigators out there. Most of them, if someone is injured because of a bad drug, if someone's injured because of a bad product or a bad physician or a bad accident or a bad attorney, then somebody should be paying for it. But it's going to take everyone who has a dog in his hunt at the table to come to an agreement that we've got to make significant changes in healthcare, but we can't afford a one-payer system because they don't work. Look at the Europeans and the Canadians, they're coming down here for healthcare.
Real quick, because you got to go, our farm bill ran out the end of September. How soon are we going to get it taken care of?
Well, if we don't get it taken care of by the time, over the first of the year, I'm really going to be upset because they're still arguing over those two issues that I told you about and a couple of amendments that I want thrown in there that will help alleviate the cost of what farmers have to go through. There's just no reason that we can't get this farm bill through.
All right.
And one other thing that's surfaced here, industrial hemp. And we've, Farm Bureau's on this. We've had, we've got people that are growing it,
Yes.
and there's talk of a big plant being put up in a neighboring county to process it.
Right.
What can you tell us?
Just basically what you told me, where we're at this point. I'm waiting to hear really something of exactly what Farm Bureau's position is on this. I'm getting a little, not so much of the direct answer that I want. So I'm sure I'll meet with Farm Bureau people when I get back to DC.
Yeah, we discussed it yesterday, and American Farm Bureau has a position on it, and that we want to see it controlled by the USDA, not the FDA.
No, I agree with you there.
And then we can look at it a little differently than we have been. But hey, hopefully this has been an informative time, and we appreciate Tom being here with us. I know he's on a tight schedule and has another meeting to get to.
Ann's back there. Don't forget before we leave, Ann's got to get some names and get
Yes.
the card. Don't be afraid to call us and explain the issues. Look, my wife doesn't agree with me 50% of the time. I don't expect you to agree with me, and I'm not going to agree with you. But there's no reason why we can't be civil and have an open-minded discussion. And I've changed my mind on a few issues by talking to people like this.
Well, let's give him a hand. We appreciate his time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Pleasure. Pleasure. You know something?
Bailey Road in Franklin Township, Susquehanna County. Heavy rains again. October 27, 2018. Salt Springs Park. Heavy rains again today. Concerned about flooding.